monsters. Thanks for joining us for today's episode and helping us on our quest to extend spooky season well beyond October. With enough monsters on board, we could make it last forever. In case you don't know us yet, I'm your favorite crime-fighting pixie, Angelina, and I'm here with my creepy cohort, Aurora. How's it going?
I'm doing great. We normally keep all the banter for the end of the show, but if I'm a little off or weird today, it's because I am exhausted because I am a new dog mom.
A new multiple dog mom.
Yes. Mom dog. And I can talk more about it at the end of the episode, but basically I am fostering 4 1-week-old. They're actually, I think, okay, get this. Guess when their birthday is.
Oh no, what?
They were born on Halloween.
Oh my God, spooky pooches. You have the best connection right here. Yeah, that's amazing. Do they have names? Because you should give them all spooky names if they don't.
Yes. And we haven't named them yet because we were kind of, like right now it's hard to get an idea of their personalities because they sleep, eat. And like, they can't hear or see, like they're 9 days old as of today. And so like we kind of wanted to get a feeling for their personalities. But once the woman that heads the foster program, which is called French Bulldog Saviors, it's like a UK-based thing. She just got back to me about their birthday because I was trying to like figure out like when are their eyes going to open? What's this going to happen?
Aww.
Like what's their date? I need to know like when I have to start weaning them and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so then we're like, yeah, let's give them spooky names. And I was like, we need to name one of the girls Morticia and one of the boys Gomez for sure.
And one of the boys Pugsley.
Yes.
They're just the Addams family.
Yes.
That's like a very like the easy method of spooky naming. We'll just name them after the entire Addams family.
Yes, I love it. And if y'all have any suggestions for adorable little French Bulldog puppy
Spooky
names that are spooky, definitely let us know. But it's been going wonderful and we'll talk more about it at the end. But I am in another plane of existence of exhaustion.
Yeah, I have some questions for you actually that I haven't even asked.
Yeah.
I'm like, I can't wait to hear more and more about these puppies, but
I can't wait to talk about them.
Yeah, and we should incorporate them into MMN stuff. Like we could get them to wear some special puppy merch,
yes.
Use them for cool photos of whatever, just like aside from, the adorable baby goats that we usually rely on, we could also have adorable baby French bulldogs.
Adorable baby French bulldogs.
Yeah, we're just a growing farm of cute and spooky beings.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So we're so glad that y'all are here and thanks for tuning in for this episode. We think of you as part of our big MMN family, as you can tell. But if you want to make your way into our inner circle, you can join the MMN commune at patreon.com/MurderMurder.news. There you can pledge whatever amount you can spare to show your support for all that we do. To show how much we appreciate that support, we'll send you our own little bit of murder merch. We'll give you a shout out on the show. And of course, you'll have exclusive access to our regular patron-only content.
And now, before we dig in, let's take a look at some of the true crime stories that have been making headlines this week. This week, a missing 16-year-old was rescued after she used a distress hand signal that she learned from TikTok. The girl was in a car with 61-year-old James Brick, traveling southbound just outside of Ohio. The girl then attempted to get the attention of nearby cars using the hand signal that she'd learned to use to request for help. The gesture is used to signal violence at home. It's made by facing the palm of the hand outward, tucking the thumb onto the palm, and then closing the other 4 fingers around the thumb to, quote, trap it. James Brick was arrested and charged with first-degree unlawful imprisonment and possession of matter sex performance by a minor.
That's so interesting that TikTok kind of saved the day. It sounds like the woman didn't quite understand what the hand signal meant, and it's not something I would have known to look for, but definitely y'all go look up this hand signal. And if we can't find the TikTok, we'll post it too, but I wasn't able to, I didn't really look much for it yesterday.
TikTok, like I've seen this thing around a little bit. It's mostly to signify domestic violence because if you're, they're saying if you're in a Zoom call with someone, for example, and you can't talk about it because the person will overhear you, you, then you just do the hand signal and they can call for help. But that's very useful information, having hand signals, because even if the person didn't fully understand what was happening, they knew that they were trying to signal something, which is very helpful.
Yeah, it let the woman in the car know that she needed help. So that's really cool that she learned something useful that saved her life from TikTok.
Amazing.
On Friday, Juilliard-trained concert pianist Zachary David Hughes was arrested for the fatal stabbing of vet tech Christina Parcell. Christina was found murdered in her South Carolina home on October 13th around 11 a.m. Police say it was obvious that the murder was premeditated and that Zachary allegedly went to her home with the intent to kill her. Zachary has not yet been charged, and it's unclear if and how the two even knew each other.
Wow. That sounds like it sounds like a cinematic, but like the mystery of the, Juilliard-trained concert pianist killing a vet tech. Like there's some weird...
I agree. And apparently he's quite renowned. Like he travels the world. Like I think he is maybe, quite famous in that sort of like people who like things like concert piano.
The music circle.
Yeah. Right.
Wow.
So super sad.
I also wanted to mention what went down at the Astroworld Festival in Houston this past weekend. During Travis Scott's set, the crowd rushed the stage, crushing and trampling fans in the audience. 8 people are dead, with victims as young as 14, and at least 13 people are seriously injured and have been hospitalized, including victims as young as 9 years old.
Wow.
Travis Scott's reaction while all this was going down was creepy as heck. He had a sly smile and seemed to delight in the pandemonium unfolding below.
Terrible.
Yeah. I saw videos on TikTok where fans turned to security or to the camera crew pleading for help, only to be completely ignored.
Wow.
Someone is responsible for this chaos, and it really seems like that someone might be Travis Scott himself. For some backstory, Scott was actually arrested after Lollapalooza 2015 for encouraging attendees to climb the barricades and storm the stage.
Wow.
He also faced charges of disorderly conduct and inciting a riot after a show in Arkansas in 2017. Also in 2017, in New York City, Scott urged a fan to jump from the balcony. That fan was ultimately pushed off the balcony and is now paralyzed from the fall and has sued Travis Scott for his injuries. So I'm noticing a pattern here. I know almost nothing about Travis Scott. I'm not a fan, but my only experience with his fans was at Osheaga a few years back. I was watching the Yeah Yeah Yeahs, and Travis Scott was scheduled to play after them, which was a bit of a lineup error, if you ask me, because it doesn't blend very well. So about halfway through the Yeah Yeah Yeahs set, Travis Scott's fans started chanting his name and loudly complaining about, quote, having to sit through another 20 minutes of this.
Oh, that's not
I was
nice.
offended
Yeah, so
for
good.
the Yeah Yeah Yeahs. Exactly. Yeah. It was just so rude. And I've been a fan for well over a decade. I always wanted to see them. These jokes were ruining it, basically.
Yeah.
And what they seemed like to me, the Travis Scott fan base was like a bunch of 15-year-olds on cocaine dressed in 90s aerobic gear, which just really was not my crowd.
I mean, it
so
sounds
very
like
obnoxious.
I would have a lot of fun, but sounds a
they're
little disorderly. Like I wouldn't yell at somebody to get off the stage. I think that's really rude. But
no, yeah, and just like being too confrontational, I guess, with everyone else there, just starting shit,
Right.
But apparently that day, Travis Scott was 45 minutes late for his set, and he played a super short show because of his tardiness. So this guy just sucks. That's all I have to say about that.
Yeah, that's really a terrible thing that happened. I don't know anything about him. I've seen articles about this popping up, and I haven't really done much of a deep dive because I was just staring at puppies all weekend and I had time for nothing else, but really terrible.
And there's so many musicians out there and so many trying to make a name for themselves. And let's just stop giving this guy a platform. He doesn't need to have any more shows. They're killing people. Like, let's not do this.
Yeah, that's really not okay.
No. Now, before we get into our story, we just want to say that while our tone is light in the intro, we do take the topics we're discussing very seriously. We are best buds and we love chatting together every week and turning it into a podcast. We want to share that passion with you and to create a vibe where all of you feel like our best buds too. We joke about us friends forming a cult or commune, but that's not to diminish the severity of actual cult activity, which we do occasionally talk about in our weekly stories. We feel it's important to open up and talk about even the darkest aspects of humanity and the downright scary things that come up in the news. But we want to make it clear that our intention is never to sensationalize, and we always try to deliver these stories with respect to all parties involved or affected by the crimes we discuss.
We always post our sources in the episode description, so you can do some digging on your own if a story we present piques your interest. But you should know that if you ever feel we get it wrong, either in our tone or in the details of the case, we want to hear about it. We are more than happy to make a correction or give an update on a case we've discussed in previous episodes. So feel free to reach out to us at MurderMurder.news@gmail.com.
Some specific trigger warnings for this episode include gun violence and stabbing. So if either of those are particularly sensitive subjects for you, feel free to skip this one and listen to one of our other episodes instead.
Today in true crime history marks the 5-year anniversary of the escape of murderer Randall Tashio Saito from a psychiatric hospital in Hawaii. I want to mention that we prefer to take a victim-first standpoint at MMN, but because this case is older and was initially covered by the media in a very killer-first angle, we could not find much information about Sandra Yamashiro, the victim. It was hard to find much information on her murder at all, so we do apologize for that. Our sources for today include the Honolulu Star, the Honolulu Herald, the Honolulu Advertiser, Hawaii News Now, Fruit Loops Pod, because the news is racist, allegedly, and many more. And that episode is so great. Definitely go check that out. I was actually just listening to them right before this.
They're so great.
So see our full list of sources for all the articles we used in our show notes.
Here's what we were able to find out about Sandra. She was a 29-year-old from Kauai. She graduated from Kauai High School in Pahala, where she was the treasurer of the Future Homemakers of America and was one of 7 students to win the Real Trojans Award her senior year. We tried to Google what that might mean, and it looks like the Kauai mascot was the Trojan. So it was likely just for service to the community or being awesome in general. She moved from her small town of Pahala on Hawaii to Honolulu on Oahu for a good job. As a side note, we definitely recommend checking out Fruit Loops episode 35, which covers this case, as we mentioned, because they also do a really great job of covering the history and especially the history of colonization of Hawaii. So back to Sandra. She had an office job at the construction company Charles Pankow and Associates. She had a boyfriend named Glenn who worked as a carpenter for the construction company as well.
On July 31st, 1979, Sandra had just gotten off work and stopped by the Ala Moana Center for some shopping. She had parked her car near Long's drugstore and had just gotten back to her brown Mazda RX-7 sports car to leave the shopping center around 8:30 p.m. Her engine was started, her lights were on, she was ready to leave, but then she was approached by a man who'd been parked near her car. The man went to Sandra's car with a pellet gun, which is a form of air gun, and shot her in the face. He then stabbed her 3 times in the chest and in the back. Another shopper at the Ala Moana noticed blood on the sidewalk near the car and then looked up to see Sandra slumped over her steering wheel and called the police. Authorities did not believe that the attack was a robbery because her purse and packages she had bought while shopping were still in the car.
The shopping center was really crowded, so there were witnesses who remembered seeing a man, and soon a police sketch was circulated. Charles Pankow and other construction businesses donated money to a $15,000 reward, which would be about $112,000 today, for information leading to an arrest. Between the sketches and an unnamed informant, 21-year-old Randall Saito was identified as a suspect. When police searched the 21-year-old Hawaiian national's home, they found an air rifle and a knife believed to be used in the attack. He was arrested and charged with her murder on December 11, 1979. Randall did not know Sandra, and as we already mentioned, his motive was not a robbery. The attack was just random. Randall pleaded not guilty by reason of insanity, and his defense team set out to prove that he could not be found guilty because he couldn't control his actions. He was examined by 2 psychologists and a psychiatrist and was diagnosed as suffering from severe psychosexual disorders, including sadism and necrophilia. The specialists did, however, all agree that he was able to distinguish right from wrong, and he was able to control his behavior. By law, that would make him sane and able to stand trial. The psychiatrist believed he showed no remorse for Sandra's murder and believed he was capable of killing again. The psychiatrist referred to him as disturbed and still dangerous.
Randall's girlfriend, Jenny Melina Santos, testified that Randall often talked about the ways he wanted to kill women. She said they would drive around his car as they looked for beautiful women. He would point an imaginary gun at the women and say, bang, bang. And he saw this as a game. So Jenny said they played the bang, bang game, which is super disturbing, 10 to 15 times during the 9 months that they dated. She also testified that Randall would make her lie limp during sex so he could experience what it would be like to have sex with a corpse.
Yikes.
Yeah, not good. And, certainly not to kink shame, but it sounds like she wasn't into it. And, this.
And he was oddly too into it.
Yeah,
like
he's
that
into it.
Clearly
then,
not just a sexual
there's
thing.
a lot more around this. So that on its own, maybe you're role playing, maybe, with
if
consent,
that's all you do,
fine.
We're not going to shame you. But when that's part of a murder story, yuck.
Yeah, not okay. So it's believed that Jenny was the unnamed informant that had ultimately turned him in. And she was also with him the night that he killed Sandra. Randall claimed that he and Sandra were playing basically a game of chicken where they were daring each other to do more and more dangerous things, and that Jenny had basically dared him to finally kill someone. Jenny did receive a plea deal in exchange for her testimony and likely also for being the person who turned him in. Though we're not 100% sure that she was, but it's kind of believed that she was probably the person that was the informant. His interest in death went back to his childhood, where he would have his sister pretend to be dead and drag her around the house. So this is clearly an ongoing thing for him.
Yeah.
He told stories about finding joy in shooting rats with a rifle and recalled first fantasizing about murdering a woman at the age of 12 or 13. He fantasized about stabbing women and would bring a knife to school with him with a desire to stab his teachers. But he also mentioned to the psychiatrist that while he wanted to, he was always a little bit too afraid to actually do it. And that fear was kind of keeping him at bay. So that's probably where the ability to tell right from wrong kind of factored in. So while visiting New York, he would walk along the shoreline, hoping to find a dead body. And at one point when he was 13, he actually shot a relative of a neighbor. But as far as we could tell, the woman survived and Randall did not receive any disciplinary action and certainly not any help for his mental health issue.
Ugh, disgusting. So many red flags leading up to this where someone could have intervened.
So many red flags. And I really would like to know more. I couldn't find any more information about that shooting. Like what happened? Like, did they know it was him? Like, did they maybe want it to go away because he was such a young kid?
I guess maybe it was an air gun again or something. I don't know if there's lesser charges with that sort of thing than a real gun or I don't know.
And I was talking to my husband who knows quite a bit about guns. Like, what is the difference between, guns are terrifying to me and I don't like any of them, like whatever. I don't really want to know anything about them. But he was saying like the difference between like a standard, I don't know, like is a revolver term for a gun or something, like the difference between something like that, an air gun and a BB gun is that like a BB gun has very little like volume of air. Like when it goes out, it's not as like fast and it has smaller round pellets. A pellet gun has more like aerodynamic pellets and it's much more high powered. You can obviously definitely kill somebody with a pellet gun. And he was saying that like some countries that have stricter gun laws, like the UK and such, and I might be wrong misquoting this, but I believe he said the UK, that they use those for like hunting and such for air rifles. So like they definitely can kill, and it doesn't seem any less bad to me than a regular gun.
Well, I mean, I think a BB gun could kill you too. Like if you were shot in the eyeball, for example, or, it all depends how you use it, but.
It's true. Oh my gosh. And like one time, this is so sad. Like my dad has a BB gun and he just, I don't know, he likes to like, I don't even know what he does with it. And they have a pond in their yard that they had installed themselves. Like he had actually dug this pond by hand. It was like this big mess. Like the tree root was found in it. It like took forever to actually like finish this thing. And they had tons of koi fish that my mom had put in there and had been taken care of. There were turtles. It's like this ecosystem. And one year around Thanksgiving, a blue heron came to their pond. And at first, like they were excited because it's rare and whatever. Yeah. And then it just kept coming to eat their fish. And these are like fish my mom had been keeping alive for 10 years. So she was upset. They were trying to like chase it away. These situations are always kind of tricky because like being a vegan and an animal lover, I'm like, I don't want to say
I already don't like whatever's going to happen. I already don't like it.
So my dad gets out his BB gun and trigger warning on this animal, violence. This is really terrible. Yeah. He meant to like shoot the BB gun to scare it. Like he was not trying to aim at it. Like he thought the noise would like just, whatever. And this is why I gained like guns even in a expert tanks. My dad has handled guns his whole life. Like they used to hunt and stuff when he was a kid. He apparently hit it and it like went rolling down the ravine in their yard. And fortunately it surved. It was like, it definitely scared it. Hopefully it flew away. So hopefully it wasn't too badly injured. But at that point, my mom took the BB gun away from my dad and he's never been allowed to have it since.
I guess.
Because,
oh my God.
Like
because those birds are beautiful. And like, I don't know how rare they are, but they seem really special. I've only seen one a couple of times and I'm, it's mesmerizing.
It was a terrible idea. And my mom and I were both like just mortified. They might even be endangered. I don't know. It's whatever it was. Maybe. It was really bad. My dad no longer has access to the BB gun and will not be shooting at any more animals in their yard. Good. They have like acres and acres of property. My dad's no longer a hunter. Wow. Like they're both vegetarians and whatever. But like our family is very animal friendly, but it was very sad. So they can be quite deadly and and should be taken seriously. So I don't know what he shot the woman with, but I would be curious to know more about this and why nothing ever came of it.
Yeah. So the psychiatrist described his mood leading up to Sandra's murder as a ticking time bomb. He'd been smoking pot, fighting with his grandma, who he lived with, fighting with his girlfriend, Jenny, practicing with his gun, and he'd been super focused on planning the perfect murder. Randall's legal team had requested a judge-only trial, and on March 6, 1981, he was acquitted of Sandra's murder by reason of insanity by Judge Harold Shintaku. This, of course, drew a lot of controversy and started a pretty heated debate about the need for a, quote, guilty but mentally ill verdict. The legislation passed unanimously as a result of Sandra's case and allowed for someone with a mental health diagnosis to be found guilty and receive treatment at a mental health facility rather than serving time in prison. I just want to say as an aside, like this is a really important issue as far as I'm concerned. Like I'm really fixated on how the insanity plea works. And like I had said in some earlier episodes, usually the way it's looked at is if when you're standing trial, you understand that you're standing trial and you understand that you're being accused of a crime, that's enough to say that you don't get an insanity plea. So that is whack because I know you can be temporarily insane and then recover by the time you stand trial. And that doesn't mean you are any less insane while it happens. Yeah. So there's, a lot of, I don't know. It's a delicate issue, but there's got to be some reform there because really it doesn't make sense in a lot of cases.
By a state-to-state basis, and Hawaii is a state. They also, I was going to do quite a bit more research about the insanity plea because it's also something I'm interested in. We've talked about it. Yeah. And yesterday, while I was trying to research this, my computer decided to unconnect itself from the internet and would not connect. So I was having to do all this from my phone. So it was just a little bit too much to undertake because it's so complicated. But I did notice that Hawaii actually has a more successful rate of arguing an insanity plea in general. Nice. And they also have this thing where you can now, like since Randall's case, plead guilty, but with mental health issues. So I think that's fantastic. Yeah. I think that's really great.
I think there's probably a huge portion of people in prison right now that would do a lot better in a medical facility. That's just how I see things.
And it's certainly not without error because, you know, a lot of the issues that we'll get into with Randall in a bit are the fact that he said he would rather be in prison, that the conditions in the state hospital are like, there's not as many people watching. So there's more people being sexually assaulted, and there's just like all kinds of bad things going on. But I think that that's something, if we use that more, then we could have better mental health hospital reform and kind of look at that
that's
as
like a separate issue. We need better facilities, et cetera.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So like one thing at a time, but I think like getting people out of prison for especially like lower level crimes would be a great place to start.
Yeah, absolutely. So Randall was immediately sent to the Hawaii State Hospital on Oahu for treatment, and there he stayed for 37 years. Randall occasionally made attempts to petition for his release, and in 1992, he filed a suit in circuit court saying the state law for persons committed to the state hospital following an insanity acquittal was unconstitutional.
Yeah. Of course, that was related to the fact that he felt he was receiving very unfair treatment there. So this does raise a valid point in general about the criminalization of mental health. For those that do successfully argue an insanity plea, they often end up spending more time in a state hospital than they would have served for a jail sentence. While Randall is arguably a pretty dangerous guy, there are many others that have committed much lesser crimes that can be successfully treated who get stuck for lengthy sentences in mental health facilities. For Randall, his lawsuit included a request for an inquiry to determine if he was still considered dangerous. His release was denied by a judge a couple of months later. He attempted again in 2000, with his request again being denied because the state believed he had all the markers of a serial killer, which does sound accurate for him. That takes us up to our true crime history event, which took place on November 12th, 2017. So 5 years ago, or 4 years ago. I said 5 earlier. I can't do math. 2017.
Oh, wow.
It's 2021. Sorry about that. That Sunday morning, the then 59-year-old Randall escaped from Hawaii State Prison in about the most dramatic way imaginable. Get ready.
Around 9 a.m., he escaped from the hospital and called a taxi to pick him up at the Kaneohe Community Park, which was about a mile from the hospital. When he called for the cab, he identified himself as Bill, and the dispatcher told him that because the driver he was sending was female and because he was being picked up at a park, they would have to use a surveillance camera in the car. The video in the taxi showed Randall with a backpack stuffed with supplies, including a cell phone with a portable charger. He can be seen texting on the cell phone and looking through his bag as though he didn't know what was inside. The backpack had not been with him when he left the hospital. At one point, he asked the driver to hurry because he was trying to make a flight. He called the charter company from the car and let them know he would be late for the flight and to wait for him. He changed into a black jacket, white printed aloha shirt, and a ball cap, and then boarded a chartered flight to Maui. He used an alias that he'd set up and paid $1,445 in cash for the chartered flight. From Maui, he took a commercial flight to San Jose, California, using one of the many aliases he had created. The flight landed in California around 5:30 p.m. Hawaii time, and the state hospital staff did not report him missing until 7:30 p.m., 2 hours after his flight landed in San Jose.
That night, a massive manhunt began for Randall as officials announced that a, quote, violent psychopath had escaped. They charged him with felony escape and issued a $500,000 bench warrant for his arrest. He headed to Stockton, California next with $6,000 in cash, a whole lot of Illinois driver's licenses with his photo and different names.
Where did he get all this money from?
We'll get into that later.
Okay. All right.
We'll get into that. But the answer is, I don't know.
Oh, God. What the hell? Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah. So he called a taxi to his hotel room in Stockton on Tuesday, and the driver said she didn't have a good feeling about him right off the bat, and it came off as weird. He did a lot of talking, and he told her that he would call her again because he wanted to get a ride to Tahoe or Vegas. That night, the driver was watching the news, and whose face did she see on TV? She recognized Randall's face on the news from her taxi earlier in the day, and she later said she felt very blessed to still be alive.
No kidding.
Yeah. Like, way to like stay safe and like listen to your instincts. So smart.
Oh my God. Randall did call and request the same driver on Wednesday morning, and the driver, of course, refused, letting her employer, Yellow Cab, know what was going on. Yellow Cab sent another driver and worked with authorities to pull into a gas station for gas, giving them time to send in police and arrest Randall. So how did Randall escape, and who was helping him? There were reports of Randall having sexual relations with staff at the hospital, and apparently he was very good at charming and manipulating everyone. He actually married a patient's advocate at the hospital in 1990, and the two were married on hospital grounds. Their marriage lasted about 10 years. It definitely crossed our minds that someone at the hospital could have minimally looked the other way or possibly have helped arrange his backpack or cash. Investigations were done by the Attorney General, who said none of the staff had aided or abetted him and that there were no grounds for disciplinary action. Pretty much no reporter in Hawaii believes that to be true. Me neither. Yep. Somebody has to have helped him.
Yeah.
There were other reports that Randall had been given special privileges at the hospital. He had access to combination locks. He was given some privileges and was allowed to receive mail that contained cash and supplies for his escape. This all adds up to something
right
that could have been prevented. Yikes.
Whoever helped Randall escape is definitely just speculation for us because we had a hard time finding information about his actual trial that took place in 2019. He did have pen pals and he did have friends at the hospital, but we aren't quite sure who was responsible for his fake IDs, cash, and cell phones. If you have some insight, definitely send us a message because we'd love to know. And, I spent like all day yesterday scouring through news articles, like publications in Hawaii definitely had like the best coverage and like had been doing kind of like a 24-hour news cycle coverage on some of this, but I couldn't find any information like about who had lined this up for him. And I feel like it must have come out at trial. And there were kind of like teasers, like he's going to reveal the information at trial. But then I could not find trial notes and such, especially while working on my cell phone. So like if anybody knows, I want to know. Please write in and tell us.
Yeah, or if you just have any idea about how things work in Hawaii or any just like strange ideas pop into your head where you're like, maybe this could have had something to do with it. We would like to mull that over.
Yeah, if you were following this case or whatever, like definitely let us know because it's so interesting. So Randall ended up pleading no contest to escape and identity theft charges and was sentenced to 5 years in prison.
At his sentencing, he apologized for his actions, but claimed that he did it to prove he wasn't a danger to the public. He said, "I did not elope from the hospital just to have fun," and that it was the only way to prove he can function safely in the community. He addressed the judge saying, "Your Honor, the irony of having to commit a crime to prove that I was safe is not lost on me."
You know, it's so interesting because that's like exactly what somebody with a manipulative personality would say. Like they have this way of like turning around the bad things they did. Like, well, you know, I didn't have a choice.
It goes to show that like if I was really bad, I would have murdered everyone that day.
Right. Like I'm surprised he didn't say anything about that. Like, look, I didn't even do any rapes or murders.
Yeah. And the thing is, he's been interested in this stuff since he was a child and talking about being fixated on it at 13 or 14 years old and having it take until he was 21 years old to actually murder someone. I mean, that proves that it's not like he's instantly going to murder someone as soon as he gets let out for a second.
Right.
You know, it's a process. It doesn't happen that regularly.
And like part of his argument, like for the judge saying that he wasn't dangerous was he had said that he didn't even sexually assault Sandra. So he's like, I just shot her. Like I didn't even sexually assault her.
She was only dead. Right? I mean, it could have been worse.
Right.
Like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
So that is the murder of Sandra Yamashiro and the escape of her murderer, Randall Saito. So, For TV this week, all I've been doing is binging Lock and Key at the suggestion of you, Aurora, and a few of our fans who've been urging that I check it out, and I'm absolutely loving it. So I would just like to reiterate that all of you who are listening should definitely watch the show if you haven't seen it yet. It's like, I just want to watch more. I wish I was watching it right now, but Louis is at work and I can't. I have to wait.
It's one of those shows that it's like that. Like, you're in this fantasy world and like you're so in it that like you start to like think about it in that way. And like, where's my key to do this? And like, where's my key where's my magic key to make my coffee? And like, whatever.
Right.
And
also I feel the you mentioned when you were describing the like synopsis of the plot, you were like, yeah, some kids find this, and then I noticed that I think it's rated G or PG or something like that. And I don't usually watch stuff like that is, you know, general audiences or whatever, but I find
for children.
Yeah, but I don't notice that it's a G show because, like, I guess there's not swearing or whatever, but, like, you know, it's creepy enough. It's plenty creepy enough and smart enough for adults to watch, for sure.
Yeah, it's great. I'm glad you watched it.
Mm-hmm. Have you seen anything else?
You know, I did watch, I think it's called like The Harder They Fall on Netflix, the Western that just came out with Regina King.
Oh, yeah. I just saw the that was on there yesterday.
Yeah, it's great. It's really beautiful. It's like such a great movie. Definitely recommend that. It's of course quite murdery because it's a Western, and it's probably like one of the most violent Westerns I've ever seen in my entire life, but it's done in kind of like a over the top way. So it's really interesting. It's great.
Nice. I watched something on Netflix called Catching Killers as well, which is interesting. It's actually, each episode is about someone who was caught, a killer who was caught, and the story's told from the perspective of the investigator who caught them. So it's interesting. It's nice to hear their perspective, but as someone who just doesn't immediately love cops or the way that things are handled in crimes like this every time, it's interesting to hear occasionally things like excuses or just weird outlooks that I wouldn't have figured. But when it comes down to it, these people caught infamous serial killers. So, I mean, It's really fascinating to hear about their process. And I gotta say that show gave me specific nightmares. Ooh, I remember watching this and then falling asleep while watching it. And the next day I was like, wow, what a fucked up dream. It was like, I remember it was like I killed someone and had to try and like hide that fact or something. And I was like, why would I dream that? And then I just remembered it really had the same vibe as that show, my dream. So I was like,
so scary. And I actually almost watched that last week, and I ended up watching The Motive on Netflix instead.
Oh, yeah.
Because I had heard mixed things. Have you watched that yet?
I haven't.
Oh, wow.
Is it subtitled?
I watched the dubbed over version because I'm lazy and I can't read.
I am too. Well, especially at night when I'm like watching something before bed. My eyes are just like, nope.
Yeah. I wish that I was a person that just read the subtitles. Like if I'm in a movie theater, I want the subtitles, and I certainly don't want a dub. But if I'm in bed watching something on my 13-inch laptop, I can't even see the text that small.
Yeah, totally.
I probably need an eye exam. But it's very good. And it's about we covered this on our TikTok, by the way, on Saturday. So if y'all want to get a little bit more information, we talk about it there, and we encourage you to come join in the conversation if you have already seen it. But it's about it's a
spoiler-friendly zone to leave your comments on the show too, on our TikTok video.
Yeah. And so it's about a 14-year-old boy who is from Jerusalem. And in 1986, he shot and killed his two parents and his two sisters in bed while they slept. And you know, as the name of it suggests, like they're trying to figure out why he did it. And the cops and everybody is just like, he's a psychopath. That's why. Right. And you're watching it, and like there's so many people that are from the mental, you know, from like child psychiatrists and like whatever that are like saying it, that you're kind of like, wow, this is so chilling. Like, I guess maybe it's true. But then like the second half is kind of like, is that what's happening? And I won't say any more, but like you'll watch it and you'll be like, I don't know that I buy this. And then they kind of present like a different chain of events. And it's like, okay, that makes much more sense. So definitely come join us in that conversation and let us know what you all think. It's a great watch.
That's cool. I like that because, again, you know, with what I was just saying about sort of the shows that highlight an investigator's perspective and stuff like that, you hear especially a lot of like old dude cops from back in the day. Like they'll often say shit like, he was just a monster. That's all. And you're like,
exactly like that. And they're all like, there was nothing in his eyes, you know?
It's like, why was he a monster? Oh, he was just born evil. Yeah, sure.
Right.
That's not how it works, guys.
No.
So very, very interesting. But I'm glad to see that they took that angle as well as some others.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we got to talk about these puppies.
Oh yeah, puppies.
We have to
tell
share
me more
this with
about
y'all.
your puppies.
And I'll definitely post some cute videos and such. But here's what happened. So, you know, my husband and I are back in Budapest and we're settled for a couple of months. And we have a 6-year-old demon of a Pomeranian who is part squirrel, part fox, and part demon, who prefers his life.
Can vouch.
Yeah. He prefers his life with a companion dog. He likes to have other dogs here. He hates being alone, and he's much more anxious and hard to manage and just like not as happy if we don't have a dog. So I had signed up to be a foster dog for, because like there's a bunch of stray dogs and stuff like in Hungary, and there's tons of like, you know, kennels that are full and whatever. So I just thought I would sign up and like take a dog for a few months while they're waiting for their like forever home and have Sebastian have some playmates.
Right.
So I signed up for an English bulldog rescue that what they do is they pick up bulldogs that people have abandoned here in Hungary because they get them as puppies and then they realize people should not be breeding bulldogs. Like they have so many health issues.
Oh,
and
these are big, needy dogs.
They're very expensive to maintain. And like, sometimes they need very expensive surgeries on like their eyes and joints. And it's really sad. And my husband's had 3 bulldogs in the past and it's just his favorite thing. And so I signed up for this rescue to see if they needed somebody to watch them in Hungary because they inevitably end up transporting them to the UK and they find homes for them in the UK. It's a British organization. And it's called the Edwards Foundation, if anybody's interested. It's a very cool group. And so they sent me an email back and they're like, you know, we don't need fosters in Hungary, but this English bulldog rescue called English Bulldog Saviors that I mentioned, they actually transport our bulldogs for us. So like it's possible they would need you to like place in homes or in your home, whatever, until they come to us. I'm like, that sounds great. My husband is going to love me. So next day I get a phone call at like 8:30 in the morning. And it's from the woman who runs the organization, who's just lovely. And she's panicked. She's like frantic, whatever. And I'm like, oh my God, we're going to get a dog already. And she's like, okay, we need you. And I'm like, yes, like give us a bulldog. Let's do this. And she's like, well, I don't think you're going to be so happy when you hear what's going on. So she tells me, I know, like more bulldogs, we'll dig them all. No. So she ended up having a French bulldog who had been abandoned when they realized she was going into labor. She was from a puppy mill. And she was going into labor and had a prolapsed uterus. And 2 of the puppies had died in the process. And they just dumped her off at a kennel. And they're like, we can't take care of this. Like, we can't pay for or whatever. So she had to go in and have an emergency C-section. They thought they were going to lose her and all the puppies. And they were doing all of this apparently on Halloween while we were all having our spooky cocktails in freezing cold, in like it was below 0, like whatever, in Budapest or around, not in Budapest, somewhere in Hungary, somewhere like in the middle of nowhere. And so they needed a place for them to go because if they bring them to a kennel somewhere in the countryside in Budapest, they would have been kept out in the cold. And they're like, all of these puppies are going to die. And we've exhausted all of our resources. Like they have like a Facebook page with like 28,000 followers, and they had already put a search out for somebody to take them, and they could not find anybody in Hungary to take them. And they couldn't transport them to the UK yet because they can't have their vaccines until they're 15 weeks old. And
so they can't leave the country.
They're not allowed to be in the UK without their rabies vaccines. Like they won't let them in even as puppies. So, so she's like, we need somebody to foster a mom and her week-old puppies, which I've never done anything like this in my entire life. Like the last time I had a puppy was longer than 14 years ago. It was when my pit bull was a baby, and I found her in a dumpster when she was like 2 months old. And she was, like an age where she didn't need a lot. I mean, she was 2 months old. She still needed a lot of like love and affection and caring, but like, she was weaned and whatever.
Yeah, helpless.
So I've never done anything like this before in my entire life.
Wow.
And like my husband and I are on the phone with the lady, and we're like, we don't even know if we're like, at the time we were in an apartment that didn't allow dogs. We were trying to find one that would let us have our dog. And we're like, like, there's no way anybody's going to let us have like 5 puppies and
we have a handful of dogs. Is that all right?
Yeah. And it's like, we're just like, we don't know how to do this. Absolutely no way. And so like, I'm like even thinking, and I'm like much nicer than my husband. I'm like, no, I'm going to say no. Like, I have no idea what I'm doing. Like these things are going to die if we're taking care of them. I have no idea how to like take care of tiny baby puppies. Yeah. And so we get off the phone with her, and she's like, look, I'm going to level with you. Like, we don't have any resources. I can't stay in here in Hungary with them. Like I'm just here for like the week to like take care of this. And we're driving back to Hungary in a few days, or to the UK with a bunch of bulldogs that need to be rescued. Like we're going to have to euthanize if you can't take them, we have to euthanize the puppies because our goal is to keep the mom alive. Like we got her away from a puppy mill, and she has her vaccines. Like we can transport her right now to the UK. So if you can't take them, there's no other way. We're going to have to put down the puppies so the mom can at least be safe. And like with that, I'm like, we're doing it.
You're like, we have to say yes no matter what.
Yeah. So the answer was clearly yes. And so like, I'm watching.
So like, are you going to keep them forever?
No.
Oh,
I would love to.
There's no chance?
There's no chance because my husband works in the film industry and he works on set.
And you got to move around too much.
Every 3 to 6 months.
It's already tricky with Sebastian, I guess.
So we would love to take the mom because I think she could potentially be the hardest. Everybody wants a puppy. Like I think she might be the hardest to find a home for.
To adopt out. Yeah.
She's lived her entire life in a cage at a puppy mill. She's had litter after litter of her babies being taken away from her and just had like the saddest life. Like she didn't know how to walk on a leash. We would take her out of like her little den that we made for the puppies. And like, she would duck down like she was going to be hit or like she was just scared of things. And like not at all potty trained. Like she has, this is so gross, but she's had like diarrhea for like the past few days. Cause like, she's just like sick. They haven't ever taken care of her. And like, if we take her on a walk, she like, as soon as we get to our door to come in, she gets like excited and she has to immediately run in and check on the puppies and make sure they're all there and that they're all okay.
Aw, what a sweet mommy.
She's so sweet. Oh, and the best news ever. So I'm learning so much about like how early puppies do things. Because right now they're so small. They are blind. They're deaf. They can't walk. They just kind of like crawl around like little worms and like
they're just little logs,
right?
Little puppy logs. Yeah.
Like one of my friends here in Hungary referred to them as milk sausages. Like, just like these little roly-polies. Like they're so cute and helpless. And like they do this thing if they can't find their mom and a nipple in like 30 seconds, they sound like they're screaming. They sound like a baby screaming. Like they don't sound like puppies whining. It's
they just scream at the top of their lungs.
Yeah, it's so loud.
Cute.
And so the reason why I'm tired is because I have not slept since they got here. Like they wake me up every couple of hours. And it's not like they need anything from me, but
you're like super doing the mom thing. It's like the description of your night's sleep sounds similar to the descriptions of my friends who have new babies.
Yeah.
It's like I wake up every couple of hours because someone's screaming for milk.
They're screaming for milk. And well, sometimes they can't, like they really like refuse to find a nipple. Like, they just like get caught in a corner of the crate and they can't see to find her. It's like, I'm excited. 2 of them had their eyes open today.
Oh my God. That's awesome.
Yeah. And I haven't, I'll try to post as many cute like pictures and videos as I can on our Instagram for this post.
And we'll put some on our Patreon as well.
Yes. We'll
so
do
those of you that read our
too.
newsletter, we'll put some there.
Yeah, we'll put extra. I'll send all the good
special
videos
treat
there.
for you patrons because we love you so much.
All the ones with their little feet.
Yeah.
I've taken so many videos of just their feet.
I don't blame you. Little like puppy or kitty feet are pretty much the cutest thing ever.
Oh my God. Like they just have the cutest little hog bodies. Like they just look like little baby pigs. They're
hog
so
bodies.
Cute.
Little sausage rolls, little pigs in blankets.
Yes.
Aw, love it.
But also, if anybody is looking for a puppy and you are listening from England, like
this is your sign. Take one of these puppies.
This is your sign because they are just like so cute you can't even look at them. It's like looking into the sun. Like,
and they're going to come with a perfect spooky name by the time Aurora is ready to give them up. So, so it's a perfect match made in heaven for any monsters out there in England looking for a puppy.
It's perfect. Like definitely look up French Bulldog Saviors. There's a group on Facebook, or send us a message and I can help put you in touch with Lindsay, the owner, if you're interested.
I would love
or
to
if you
see
want
that
to donate
happen.
because they do amazing things. Like they're rescuing these poor dogs from puppy mills that are still quite legal in Hungary. In just really terrible conditions. Like she's lived her whole life outside where it gets very cold in a cage.
So I guess that's enough murder for 1 week. If you disagree and you actually would prefer to have a little more murder, you can always find us on the OG MurderMurder.news for the latest breaking true crime news articles every day of the week.
You can also find us on Instagram at MurderMurder.news, where this week we posted a pretty great meme about Mariah Carey's very intrusive holiday tune. We are on Twitter at Murder News and on TikTok at Murder News, where you can find our video about Sister Kathy from the Netflix series The Keepers, who was murdered this week in true crime history, as well as Monday's video about missing person Josiah Moore, who really, really, really needs everybody's help. Like she's just such a sweetie pie. Like she's so cute. And it sounds like she could have been taken by her stepdad, who is a police officer in East Orange, New Jersey. So go check that out.
Don't let him get away with this. Watch the video, share it, leave a comment. Yeah, please.
Right. And on Facebook, you can find us by just searching for Murder News.
And while you're on Facebook searching for Murder News, aside from our page, you'll also see our group pop up, and you'll want to join that group if you'd like to chat about murder with us, as well as to stay in the loop about any upcoming virtual events and our latest book club selection. So we're currently reading I Know What You Did Last Summer. It's a quick and easy read, so it might be a great time for you to finally join our book club and pop onto Zoom so we can all discuss the book together on Sunday, November 28th.
Yeah, it's great. I just finished it today. Go read it so we can talk about it.
That was fast.
Yeah, I know.
Thanks again for tuning in. Have an amazing week, and we'll see you all next Friday. Bye.
Bye, friends.